What does company culture mean to you, and how do you define the culture at your firm?
I often talk about Environmental Design Group as an ecosystem. And we have core values that they're not just posted on the wall and on our website and on our intranet. Collaboration, family, integrity, sustainability, trust, quality. And we talk about those regularly and hold people accountable to those core values. And we have.
When it comes to attracting and retaining top talent, having a strong company culture is no longer a nice to have. It's a must have. Employees are looking for more than just a paycheck. They want to work for an AEC company that shares their values, supports their growth, and makes them feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. So, what sets industry-leading companies apart from the rest? In this episode, I'm joined by Dwayne Groll, licensed professional engineer, CEO and chairman of the board at Environmental Design Group. In this episode, we'll talk about the essential elements that make a company's culture truly exceptional, from fostering a positive work environment to empowering employees to drive innovation. Dwayne talks a lot about the entrepreneurial spirit and how they help to really grow it in his firm. I'm your host, Anthony Fasano, and this is the Civil Engineering CEO. All right, now I'd like to welcome our guest onto the show for today. Dwayne Groll is a licensed professional engineer. He's also the chief executive officer and chairman of the board at Environmental Design Group. Dwayne, welcome to the Civil Engineering CEO.
Thank you, Anthony. Pleased to be here and pleased that you took the time and looking forward to sharing some of our story.
Absolutely, Dwayne. So to get us started, maybe you could tell us a little bit about Environmental Design Group as a company, and then, of course, kind of your role as the chairman and the CEO and what that kind of involves on a daily basis.
Yeah, so it's a long serendipitous journey here. Environmental Design Group was formed in 1984. So we just celebrated our 40th year in business. And it was a time of environmental discourse across the country. If you remember Love Canal, and of course here in Ohio where we're based, the Cuyahoga River and catching on fire, and late night television having a good time with that and their joke patterns. But the Clean Water Act came along in 72. The EPA was formed. And so out of that, an entrepreneurial bunch of folks got together and formed Environmental Design Group under the thesis that bringing a whole bunch of different professionals together versus having a survey firm at one place, an engineering firm over here, to bring those services all together to collaborate for clients. So a mixture of landscape architects, civil engineers, surveyors, construction management folks, planners, environmental scientists, geologists. So weaving that all together for a client with the focus on always trying to mimic the environment and what we do. Even if we're building a roadway, what are those things that we can take from nature to learn to and to integrate into our projects with our communities? So that was the start. I joined in 92, fresh out of college. I had worked full-time direct going to college. So I graduated a little bit later, non-traditional student. Started as an EIT, got my license, became a project manager, and so forth. And then in the mid 2000s, as we were growing, early 2000s, they were growing, Anthony. The founders were entering into their retirement phase. So the company was sold in 2004, sold to a larger engineering company. And so the name Environmental Design Group went away. So we moved forward down the road as a larger entity in Ohio. And then the Great Recession hit and the housing market shut down. And so the company overarching that acquired us was heavily invested in residential development. And so we were all struggling. And so a group of us got together, and 5 of us came together and approached the owners of the larger company and said, we've got an idea. We'd like to acquire the Akron office back where we were the former headquarters of Environmental Design Group. And we'd like to, we'd be willing to take our 30 employees with us and buy back the name, buy back the forward contracts and the history. And so in February of 2012, we closed on that deal. So while at that time and what we see today is mass conglomeration, right? Multiple firms being bought up and put on one house. We went the opposite way and spun out and started, thought there was a lot of value we could unlock in that. And so we started with 30 people. We didn't have business cards that first day. Someone had taken a drawing and mocked it up on the internet so people would type our name in and see that we were a real functioning company. But we had built a lot of trust and relationships with our clients primarily in Northeast Ohio. And so we went to them and said, here's what we've done, and hope that we can continue to provide value, which we did. And that was in February. And by midsummer, we had to start hiring because we couldn't keep up with the amount of work that the clients were giving us. So we understand where you're at. And by the way, here's more work. And so then we started to get a little more sophisticated. We got business cards and we got a real website. We had a massive upgrade in IT through the lean years. Things had fallen by the wayside. And we started growing. And so today in 2025 now, we are about 125 employees. We have five major offices, all in Ohio. So we think we have a lot of communities that still that we haven't worked in, and so we think we have a lot of ground to cover there yet in Ohio. We are working across the nation in a couple of niche areas that we have. So we do work in multiple states outside of Ohio, but our focus is in Ohio.
Wow,
so that's a little bit of back.
Yeah, no, that's not a story I hear on every episode. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. And really it's I commend you and the 4 people that, took that kind of risk, if you will, in purchasing back the company. And I guess one question I would have on that is a risky proposition. And I'm just curious as to what made you feel comfortable enough to kind of put a risk like that of acquiring the company back and with the idea of now it's up to us to kind of roll up our sleeves and build it. What was your mindset with that decision?
Well, we joke now. It's like, boy, if we knew what we knew back then, maybe we wouldn't have done this a couple times, so yeah, the mindset was, that company was in talks for merger with another company, and we just didn't want to be part of something where, like I said, we thought we had a lot of value to unlock and we weren't able to unlock it under the big umbrella. So the risk was, if it faltered or failed, I think I'd calculate once, it's like, okay, I'll have to work 10 more years of my career to make up for that, that loss. But we were confident because much like how we've grown, we were very confident in our ability to develop relationships. We had always put a focus on marketing and business development, and that's first and foremost, and that's today. We can have the greatest transportation group ever, but if we can't get the word out, it doesn't matter. And you can have the greatest accounting firm in the world or staff, but if you can't get the word out and you can't reach clients, then it becomes a mute point. So we were confident. We wrote our even under the big umbrella, we wrote our own proposals. We did our own invoicing. We did our own project management. We ran our own projects. So we were confident that we had the model. But like I said, there were some things we uncovered that is like some days like, wow, if we would have known that. But it worked out.
That's great. That's great. No, and like you said, we're in a world today of acquisitions and private equity and all these types of things. So, and not that there's anything wrong with those things. It's a different way to grow, but personally as an entrepreneur, I like the idea of rolling up your sleeves and trying to build something from the bottom up because I think it's exciting and I think it's challenging. And, I commend you and your team there that did that. That's awesome. And really, I think what we're going to talk about today in culture is a big part of growing a company the right way from the ground up, if you will. And so I guess the first question I'll ask you, Dwayne, is what does company culture mean to you, and how do you define the culture at your firm?
Well, that's a great question. So I often talk about environmental design group as an ecosystem. So, and we have core values that they're not just posted on the wall and on our website and on our intranet. Collaboration, family, integrity, sustainability, trust, quality, and we talk about those regularly and hold people accountable to those core values. And we have some competencies as well, even as far as rolling those into integrating those in, I should say, to our annual and mid-year reviews. And how we promote those core values and that culture so our clients feel that even feel that culture. And we have clients that from governmental agencies that have come into our office and said, hey, can we come over and have lunch with you guys and understand what you're doing and how you're doing it? And it's over the years, it's the focus every year has grown more and more into that cultural mindset of excellence with these core. I think the core values really help define that culture.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I think it's great that you're very focused on those values and keeping them, ever present throughout your organization and, a reflection upon to your clients. I mean, we take that really seriously here at the Engineering Management Institute. Our values are give, guide, grow. We give our all, we guide each other, and we grow together every day. And really what we do is we help engineers become better managers and leaders, which is cool because if we're growing ourselves at EMI, we're only going to be able to grow our clients, right? So it really
Yep.
lines up well. And I think you have to have that message with your team. And it's exciting to hear that you have it and that other clients are seeing that and seeing that shine through. I think that's a big testament to it. So, Dwayne, how do you ensure that your company's core values are reflected kind of in the day-to-day operations? That's always a challenge.
Well, that's a great question, Anthony. So day to day, again, because we talk with our project managers, with all of our supervisors, so it's each group that we have. We call them pods. And the pod doesn't stand for anything. It's a grouping of service lines that are matched to the market. But it's not that hard once it gets integrated to understand, and then people hold each other accountable and themselves accountable. So once you build the momentum, then I don't want to say it becomes easier, but once you build the momentum, it gets stickiness. The other challenge is if someone does something that goes against those core values, we sit down with them and we say, that's unacceptable. And it can lead to up to dismissal if that, depending on the magnitude of that violation of that core value. And so that's understood as well. Not that we dismiss people, you know, regularly, but that has happened in the past, or they ultimately self check out themselves once they're held to that standard, and it's known that is unacceptable.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think there has to be accountability around the values of the company. And, I know for us, if we're interviewing someone to come and work here, we're asking, are they going to embody the give, guide, grow mentality? Because if they're not, then we can't hire that person, right? It's
Yeah,
not gonna,
right.
it's not going
That's
to
right.
line up, right? The same thing with a client. Do we want to work with this client? In fact, we've had a couple clients that were maybe really rude, and I just said, you know what? They're not embodying the give, guide, grow mentality. It doesn't feel right working with them, So I think it is a way that you can really measure everything in your organization, and then when you do it that way, it also sends a great message to your team members that not only are these values on the wall or on the website, but they're actually in what we're doing every day, right? And I think that that's people see that, and then that builds the culture even stronger from my experience. So I think that that's great. So I want to talk about something that we're passionate about at EMI, which is leadership development. How does leadership development play a role in shaping and sustaining the company culture?
Well, it's critical, and I view everyone as a leader in the organization. It's not just if you have a title. Everybody in the organization, no matter what your role, is a leader. You might be a leader in your family, in your church, in your community, but even within EDG as an employee, you can have leadership responsibilities. You can take ownership of something. You can help somebody that's struggling. So, and we promote that extensively. And then we also have structured programs. So we have something called the Blue Lobster Leadership Program. So that's a cohort that we put through 2-year program that we have developed. It's by application and selection. And so we put a group of somewhere between 4 to 6 or 7 people through that at any one time, and they overlap. And so teaching all about what the different areas of environmental design group, but also teaching about leadership skills. And so that's one of many things. Pre-pandemic, we did a leadership journey. We call it a leadership journey, which was a series of conversations. Everyone in the organization went through it. So that covered about 2 years. So we're constantly trying to think about, okay, what is leadership? What are those next steps? We have an executive coach that spends 1 day a month with us. At any one time, there's 7 or 8 people that he's working with during that day that he's here to help them grow as leaders or help them with their challenges. So that's another thing we do. So we put a lot of effort into what is leadership, who are our future leaders, and how can we help them grow.
That's great because I do think it's important, and I do think that those leaders will maintain and grow the culture that we talked about. I think that's an important part of growing the culture, and I've seen it here at EMI where if you're building the culture the right way and you're developing leaders, it kind of polices itself, if you will, because you have all your leaders embodying those same values. So I think that that's great that you're doing it both formally and kind of informally. So, Dwayne, what challenges have you faced in maintaining your firm's culture during periods of growth or change? And how have you dealt with those challenges? Because it can become tricky as a company grows.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure some of those challenges out, Anthony. The I think a statement as a whole that people, for the most part, don't like change. That's a broad statement, but a lot of people don't. Some people embrace it, but a lot of people don't. So when there's this change and we're continually growing and changing and trying to enhance our organization, that can be unsettling. So we are we're very upfront when we're interviewing. It's like, if you don't like change, this probably isn't the place for you, because it's not chaos. It's just there's continual evolution of things, and we're always trying to get better, and we're always looking for new opportunities, new ways to help clients in maybe different ways that are in addition to what we do as more, say, traditional engineering, but other things that we can help with, whether that's helping them brand their community or helping them in economic development, ways like that. So it is a challenge when there is change. People are uncomfortable with uncomfortable conversations.
Right.
So those are some of the big challenges that we have faced. The pandemic has put a whole other light on the workforce. So that's another challenge. We are work from home partially, but that's worked out pretty well for us.
Yeah, and I would say too, like, I think that going back to what we spoke about a few minutes ago, in leadership development is a great way for the culture to survive change and growth, right? Because if you're developing leaders the right way and they're aligned with the values of the company, regardless of what
Yeah.
happens, they should be able to help people bridge the gap from, 50 people to a 100-person firm to a 150-person firm, and try to make sure that those values continue to trickle down, which is why, I'm personally so passionate about leadership development. Obviously, it's what we do here at EMI, but because that's really like, that's your ability to have an influence throughout the company as you grow, right? I mean, if you're CEO of a company with 5 people, you can talk to everybody. But if you're a CEO of a company that's 150, 250, 500 people, now it becomes harder for you to personally impact them on a value basis. So that's why that leadership pipeline is so important. And I think that that can solve a lot of the challenges that you're talking about. But then again, I know leadership development in itself isn't an easy thing, but it is can be certainly be part of the solution. So, Dwayne, what does entrepreneurial spirit mean to you, and how is it reflected in your leadership style?
Well, it probably wasn't in my DNA back in 2005, but as we got to 2008 and 9 in the Great Recession and started thinking about how can we unlock this value and do the spinoff, it really, I want to say, almost forced us into an entrepreneurial spirit. And so we did some crazy things. We interviewed 6 banks, and every bank said, we had to go through SBA, and, the deal went dead. And then we found a community bank that worked with us. It's like, this is not an SBA deal. Now we had to raise all the capital ourselves. So that was an interesting, we were just trying to get a credit line to have a functioning business. So just some, just forcing, I mentioned, no business cards. Like, I don't want to spend any more money unless this deal really goes through. And so, and we live that to today. One of the things I do personally in my role is I study a lot of businesses, but not necessarily in the AEC space. Like, we've taken things from other businesses and copied them or modeled them to see if it works, and some work, some don't. But constantly studying the business of businesses to see what they're doing in their space and how does it adapt to our space. And I had the greatest compliment, I think, I don't know, it was about 4 or 5 years ago. I was visiting with a city engineer, and we're very close, and we've worked with this community for 25 years or so. And he's like, I just I just love, how the civil engineering world is moving forward. And I just looked at him and I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, all the things that you guys are doing. I said, oh, we got that one from a bank. We copied that one from a banking institution. And this other one, I'm not sure where our marketing director got that one from, but, it's just looking out for these constant, how to do things differently, challenge the status quo, and, just do things that aren't necessarily traditional, but add value to the client.
Yeah, that's great. I really like that approach. In fact, going back to what you said about, raising the money, getting the funds, getting the credit line, I'm actually reading a book right now. It's really good. It's called The Book of Joe, which is about Joe Madden, who was the Major League Baseball manager, managed the Angels, the Cubs, and the Tampa Rays. He was a minor league career player, never made it to the majors, tried really, really hard, never really thought he was going to make it as a manager in the majors, but was given a chance one day with the Angels, and sure enough ended up winning the first World Series with the Cubs in 108 years. But what he said was, like, all those hard times in the minors and the bus rides and all that stuff was the real struggle that made him be a successful manager. And I guess what I'm getting at is, I think that whole startup of the company and raising the money and being able to pull that off, I think is just a great backbone for the company going forward. Like, look what we did to get started. Look what we had to go through. We can kind of do everything from here. And so I think that sometimes those struggles in business and in life is what really sets us up for success, going forward. So I think, I'm sure I mean, I know if I worked for your company, it'd be inspiring to understand that background and how we kind of bootstrapped it and had to kind of pull it together from the beginning. And it's great that you look at different businesses, because I think that that's a great thing to do. Get out of your industry a little bit, right, and see what else works. And I'm sure that that's certainly paying dividends. So I do want to just ask you a little bit about innovation. I know innovation is a hot topic in the AEC world, but how do you balance kind of fostering innovation with still having that need for operational efficiency in an engineering firm?
Yeah, that's a challenge, right? As engineers, we like to spend time innovating, but that doesn't pay the bills, right? So it's try to be very thoughtful on where we're headed with innovation. So we do a strategic plan every year. We spend a lot of time on it, and out of that strategic plan comes three strategies and then no more than three tactics under each one of those strategies. And we're very diligent when we're done with that strategic plan in September. The last day that we're done with it, it's live, and we start moving on it. And then we meet forward. We meet every month on it and just check in. That has driven us, and that kind of balances that innovation and business, because we'll have some innovation on there, but we don't stray too far from, say, that tactic on innovation to explore. So we don't have 15 things we're pursuing. We have one or two that we're willing to explore, develop a plan for. If the plan seems viable, invest in it and move it forward. So it's tricky because there's so many things that are kind of shiny diamonds out there that you want to chase, right? You want to look at that, go, oh, that'll work, or that piece of software, or this new methodology. So it's a challenge. That's how we balance it. AI, I think, is a good example, right? It's there's so much innovation happening in there. We use it in some of our practice, and but we've decided to hold back on spending a lot of money trying to integrate it, because we may be an early adopter, but other companies are developing it. Autodesk is developing it within their platform,
Right,
as is
right.
Open Roads, and is Microsoft, as is Deltek. And so kind of letting them lead that and then seeing where we can use those tools, but not jump headfirst and hire an AI consultant
Yeah, I like that. I like that approach.
to develop tools, because somebody else is, however many 16,000 companies now are out there developing AI solutions. So
Yeah, no, I like that. You're
that's a great
dipping your
question.
toe in the water, right?
Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
idea. All right, so Dwayne, one last question I have for
yeah.
you is, what final piece of advice can you give to leaders of other firms about fostering this entrepreneurial mindset within the organization?
Wow, that's the hardest question you've asked all day, Anthony, because there's just a lot of hoops to jump through in an organization. And for us, it's natural because we did a startup basically, right? But I would say the one saying that we have is challenge the status quo, which I think can lead to that entrepreneurial mindset, and study the entrepreneurs out there in the world that have started companies. Doesn't have to be in engineering. Again, study those leaders. There's countless videos on YouTube where they're interviewing different leaders and thought leaders, entrepreneurs that have started businesses. So read, study, analyze, and then challenge the status quo within your own walls, to say, why are we doing it that way? Or what, from a client perspective, what can we be offering a client? Interview the client and say, how do you, this is something we do. We'll interview a client, not to promote us ourselves. We want to interview you. Tell us about your clients. Tell us who you're serving. What challenges do you have? What's keeping you up at night? And oftentimes there's a nugget in there that comes out. It's like, well, we're really having a problem over here. Nothing to do with engineering sometimes, but whether that's giving them a follow-up to an idea, um, getting them in contact with another community that maybe has dealt with that. So, or creating a service line that helps those particular needs if there's a lot in different communities like that.
That's great. I love that idea. I like interviews. I've done 1,000 of them.
Yeah.
No, but really, I think that getting inside the mindset of your clients and understanding what their challenges are, what their needs are, it will really just help you to craft your services in a way that will really be value driven, right? And I think that's what we're trying to accomplish as consultants and as professionals. So that's great. So once again, Dwayne Groll. Dwayne is the CEO and chairman of the board in Environmental Design Group. Dwayne, I know you're incredibly busy. I want to thank you for some time here on the Civil Engineering CEO. I really appreciate your visit here with us.
Thank you, Anthony. And likewise, it was a great conversation. More than happy to converse anytime, on camera or off. And it was great to spend some time with you today. I really appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Dwayne. What he did by partnering up with some people and buying back the company is really fascinating and extraordinary to me. And I really enjoyed his conversation and his take on company culture. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe to our channel here. We do put out videos like this on a weekly basis to help AEC professionals become better managers and leaders. I'll see you next week.